Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Spotlight on Security Tech Insights. My name is Shelly Calhoun-Jones, and I'm a principal technologist here at Cohesity. Today, we're joined by Jason Walker from Pure Storage. Jason, would you like to do an introduction?
Sure. Thanks, Shelly. Yeah. Hey, I'm Jason Walker. I am the global practice lead for modern data protection and security at Pure Storage.
Jason, it's great to have you. And in this episode, we're actually going to be sitting with Jason to discuss cyber resilience. In particular, cyber resilience in the ever-changing storage landscape. For a lot of companies out there, you could be managing workloads that are on-prem. You could be managing workloads across different cloud providers, which can, cause your data to be distributed and add to that complexity. So, the idea is that we want to look for a way that we can simplify, because we know that for most of us, we're managing our workloads on different systems, whether we're still moving into the cloud or perhaps managing a legacy workload that needs to be on-prem. And it could be due to compliance reasons, or it could just be due to the fact that you're in the process of refactoring this particular workload. You could be evaluating a SaaS application for that workload. Now, those are just a couple examples. Jason, based on your experience, what are some of the challenges that your customers have ran into when working with the changing storage landscape?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's crazy out there right now, Shelly. You've got these folks are walking in every day. There's new SLAs, there's new data, there's new applications out there. And these folks are on the hook for providing data anytime, anywhere, any place, and keep it secure. We want to keep it safe. Don't lose any data. Guard against ransomware and everything else. And by the way, do all of that with less time, less resources, less floor space, and less money than ever before. So it's the struggle is real out there, and that's just today. Then they got to go through the same thing again tomorrow and the day after that. So I mean, it's a real challenge out there in the storage landscape to keep up with the changing SLAs out there with all those other headwinds in front of them.
Right. They want to have the ability to recover quickly. They could be trying to locate some type of mission critical file within their environment to restore. So that kind of leads us into cyber resilience. We want to make sure that we have the ability to keep the lights on within our business. We also want to make sure that we always have our data online. What are some ways that your customers have increased cyber resilience with their critical workloads?
Yeah, well, as these folks are coming in and asking for kind of for help and guidance in that chaotic realm that they're in, it's a good time to have them just kind of stop. They're always going to ask you questions based on what's happening in front of them right now, because that's the hot potato, right? They're looking for something to toss that hot potato to. But it's a good time to stop and introduce the idea of more tiered resiliency and having different levels of recovery throughout their in their game plan and throughout their information lifecycle management. Failover, snapshots, replication, and talking about that, and trying to make it as simple as possible for them to have an overarching plan that takes all those things in consideration, gives them those recovery points along the way, including their last line of defense, a rapid kind of a rapid restore from backup. So a good continuity plan is important. Important to talk to those folks about. They're feeling the pain in the moment, and just slowing them down and discussing a good intentional plan with some tiered resiliency in there has really helped out.
It's funny that you mentioned having a game plan. I remember when I worked at Amazon, one of the things I always drove home was, doing game day exercises,
Right.
Going through your plan and making sure that you have all the right stakeholders involved, that you have a list of all of your mission critical systems, at least
Right.
be able to do a backup and restore, if not be able to fail over to maybe a hot site or a separate DR environment, so you can keep your workloads online. So I think that dovetails really nicely into it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, Shelly, I'm sure you've seen it 1,000 times. I mean, nobody knows the chaos of a live event until it happens. I mean, you put it off. You put off planning for it. You put off all these other things, but nobody that the chaos of it's happening. You know, it's the meme. You know, it's happening. That thing. It's you know, it really is crazy. And you're right, folks don't plan for all of that. They've got this in place and they have that in place, but maybe, you know, they're not accounting for things to help mitigate that chaos in the very beginning, for sure.
Kind of makes me think of that World's Most Interesting Man meme where they're like, oh, I do all my testing in production.
Right. I mean, it really comes down like, oh, wow.
Oh,
you know,
wow.
we didn't do it. Now it's happening. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, you know, just kind of based off your personal experience, you know, if you've ever dealt with a significant outage, you know how essential it is to, you know, keep things up and running. Are there any other, you know, tidbits of wisdom that you'd like to share with the audience on how companies can prepare for an outage and just keep everything running?
Yeah, that's a good show. And I'd like to be able to tell everybody that I go into my cone of silence and enter the plane of understanding and come out with the 10 commandments of being prepared. But really, it's stories from customers themselves, and it's feedback that you get when things do come, you know, people go through that cycle, when you go through that cycle. And really, it comes down to having a game plan before the attack, during, or after an event happens like that, and planning. You know, you talked about you know, running drills and things of that nature. Even having your executives involved, you know, before the attack, you know, Shelly, I mean, patching, you know, things that, you know, basics, but it's become even more complicated now with, you know, change control and how, you know, how terribly diverse companies are from a siloed data perspective. Having the game plan before, if an attack happens here, we had a customer tell us it took them 2 days just to find someone to say it's okay to pull the plugs. I mean, you're getting attacked. Unplug everything now. You know, that should be like the first thing on the thing, disconnect. But, you know, there were things that were online and they didn't know if they could. Those are the things that, you know, planning has to be a good plan. You have your during the attack, what to do then. And then, you know, you mentioned after the attack, recovering. Are you prepared to recover 50%, 75%, 100% of your data center? What timeline does that look like? When we had we had a separate customer, Shelly, tell us that, you know, it was taking, you know, 3 weeks for them to recover. And that's pretty much the average. I don't know what you've seen out there, but that's been pretty much the average time of recovery in 3 weeks. I mean, that you might as well plan your next vacation if it's 3 weeks from that, you know?
You know, I hear you. I remember dealing with customers running into virus outbreaks, and we would connect into a server, and my contact would be like, well, you know, I'm not really quite sure what the server is being used for. And so you're just like kind of scratching your head there for a moment. Is it a test environment? Is it production? Right. What's the role of this server? So yeah, it really kind of goes back to making sure that you have a good game plan. Kind of like those fire drills we used to do in school where the teacher would take you to the outside of the building. Same kind of thing. Well,
you know, and one of the things that, you know, that comes up a lot, you know, with the ransomware, of course, being the big overarching thing that really, you know, jumped in about 2015 or so, and has caused a lot of this, you know, attention to recovery. But, you know, organizations preparing, you know, there have been enhanced best practices also for like security guardrails and things like that. But, you know, from your perspective, you know, what kind of security guardrails do you recommend for that kind of that big game plan?
No, that's a great question, Jason. You know, any type of preventative measure that you can do to help secure your environment is always going to be a win. So I always like to recommend that we start out with using the mindset of least privilege. If you're an Amazon customer, it could be making sure that you're using roles, which gives you the ability to set up permissions based off of the role of the user, the application, or the service that you're working with. Or it could be that you have a large amount of users that are on the road, work from home. So in that instance, you'd want to make sure that you have multi-factor authentication enabled. these are just, basic security principles that you can really leverage in any type of environment, whether you're working on-prem, whether you're working with AWS or Azure. Even better if you are working within the cloud, making sure that you have an organization's type of account, a parent account that can manage all the child accounts within your environment. That's another example of a guardrail. And if you are more savvy with tools like Terraform or CloudFormation, you can also use infrastructure as code. And what this gives you is the ability to set up blueprints or templates that your employees can use if they need to set up a test environment, or if you are in a DR situation and you need to quickly spin back up your workloads. You can also use infrastructure as code templates for that. So it's really, really cool. But the benefit of using these type of tools or having them at your tool belt is that it gives you the ability to deploy environments consistently, and they have the same security baseline, they have the same security updates, and this gives you the ability to respond even quicker and recover from an incident.
So you're saying cross your fingers, shouldn't be in play anymore.
Oh, a lot of security folks, they like to plan for the worst and hope for the best. So
yeah. Well, we do always say that. We always say plan for peak. Right. Whether it's you don't plan for down the middle, plan for peak. Give yourself some breathing room there for sure.
Exactly. Give yourself a little bit of wiggle room, and if you have that automation in place, it also kind of helps make sure that you don't have to get up at 2 a.m. to deal with a major outage.
Well, back in the day, we didn't just cross our fingers. We had redundancy. We crossed both fingers. We did both ones. Yeah. That was the old school way of hoping that things would come back up after an event. That's for sure.
That's too funny. Well, let's see here. So we're talking a little bit about the worst case scenario if a meteorite strikes our data center, and so that kind of leads us into the wonderful world of RTO and RPO. So making sure that you have a solid plan in place to make sure that you can hit your SLAs. Can you think of any other ways that teams can also quickly recover?
Yeah, well, we talked about, you start your fastest recoveries from a snapshot. You build that tiered resiliency in, but you have to think about, your time to recover also. Again, I talk about that 50%, 75%, 100% of your data center, planning for peak. How long would that take, and understanding the entire continuum of recovery, your snapshots, your high availability, but also that last line of defense, recovering from your backup sets and things of that nature. And the problem, back, 100 years ago when I started in data protection, Shelly, it was, like I said, there was a lot smaller data. Tapes were relevant. You could do it from tape, you could actually recover, but you were really talking about 1Z, 2Z type recoveries, VM recoveries. Now you're talking about this recovery at scale. And in the meantime, data usage has also spiked up also. And, by the way, it costs more than ever to be down for an hour than there. So you have this wonderful confluence of events where you can plan about the patching, and you can do all the before, and you can have resiliency built in. But ultimately, you also have to plan for, how can I recover at scale? And that's where, Shelly, that's where that you really have to check all the boxes now. I mean, is there a box you used to be? We could, forget about one, maybe forget about another. And certainly we optimized for backup forever, but recovery now, Shelly, is like, it's critical. You have to really be on top of that one too. You got to check that box. Right.
So making sure that your data is highly available, but also at the same time, making sure that it's protected from bad actors.
Right.
That's a tricky one. And, we've seen a lot in the industry that, for some companies, having a 3-2-1 backup approach isn't enough. Yeah. So, it's like, well, what do you do in that type of scenario? How can organizations protect their data?
Right. And even, that we talk about the cyber, the guy, the old stagecoach robbers with the masks on and whatnot. And they figured it out. They figured out that, folks are not paying the ransoms from these things, or they're because they're just recovering from the backups. Well, let's, when we're in the environment, let's just figure out what those credentials are, and we'll blow that away. Or, and certainly they figured out a lot of ways that can be recovered. So you have to have more of that. And even from a from a snapshot perspective, if they they have that, maybe they eradicate that. So some organizations can protect that in a number of different ways. We have a solution, Safe Mode, where we introduced an authorization gap, an authentication gap, where you have the human element involved, the multi-factor authentication. Those are great ways, to do that and just create more hindrances to have to try to figure out and move on to the next folk that's not taking care of their environment too well, in there. So there's ways that they can protect that as well. And, that doesn't just help against the cyber criminals. You have your compromised admin credentials, maybe a bad actor inside the org, or, Shelly, I'm from Florida, it's a home of Florida, Florida man strikes again, home of the accidental admin. So there's ways to build that kind of off gap and protection to protect that, from folks like me, Florida man, making a mistake and that. In fact, we, at Pure, I think we help more people from accidental problems than the cyber events, but you're protected from all of it. And those are good ways to do it.
No, that's awesome. It kind of reminds me when you have someone build you a house, their job is to make sure that they're pouring a concrete foundation, have all the wiring and the cabling, but you, the homeowner, you're still in charge of that security. So, if you live in a rough part of town, you might have to install a security system or get a dog. You don't know. So
and it's every industry too that looking at that. We had a customer that was doing a bake off and they were going to offer it as a service to their customers, ransomware recovery. And when you think about that, Shelly, you're thinking about, how do you offer that up? Because you have to recover. You're offering it as a service. Someone's going to pay for that service. You got to make sure it works. So, they actually went out and they had 15 different vendors come in. For thank goodness. Yeah, if you and me, I know we wouldn't want to take on baking off 15 different vendors, but but all of them had these guaranteed solutions. And of course, everyone's going to say, "Oh, of course you come back from ransomware." But considering all the things we just talked about, can you protect it? That ultimately you have to come out on top. You have to make sure that it works. So the 15 vendors baked off, and like I said, it'd be quite a twist if I told you that at the end of this, Pure Storage didn't pass the test. We won that, but we did. It was only 2 of the 15 vendors that actually got through it, and because they were able to break it a number of different ways, able to get the admin credentials, able to beat the drawbridge of an air gap. They were able to render data unrecoverable. So when we asked, well, how did we do it? We'd love to know what were the difference in there. One of them was introducing the off gap. They couldn't beat the human element, and the two involved in our safe mode protection for snapshots and repositories in there. That was one of the things. And then what they said was the recovery at scale, because ultimately, if you protect data, if you put it in a panic room somewhere, but you can't get it out. What good was it? What did we do here? It's like the pirates. It's like the pirates that hid the treasure up in Nova Scotia. They hid it so well, nobody could get to it.
You find it like 100 years later. Oh, that's where that file is.
Oh, I couldn't get it. I set the traps too hard. I couldn't even get my own treasure back out. So those are all the things to consider there. And these folks went through that and do that. But it just goes to show that there's a lot to think about when you have that entirety of a data protection strategy.
Oh, that's awesome. And especially with the safe mode feature, having the ability to make sure that your data is protected no matter what. That's huge right there.
Yeah, I always say from the time the data is born, little baby data, you don't, when something's a baby, you don't not protect it. Of course you protect it right away, all the way through till the end of the life cycle. At the end of the ILM, you should have protection. And Pure does it with, like I said, safe mode, protecting it from a snapshot perspective, protecting the snapshots from, like I said, cyber criminal, angry admin, or the accidental admin, doing that all the way through to protecting backup repositories in the same way. So it definitely is something that we've talked a lot about with customers. Like I said, Shelly, we get a ton of anecdotes from folks. There's just not a single conversation where you're not thinking about security and how to get back up in case of an attack.
Oh, that's really, really awesome. It really kind of just drives the point home that, storage is a critical component of any environment. We want to make sure that our backup architecture is going to be fast enough to back it up and also have the ability to restore quickly, and also try to simplify our storage footprint, which is always a work in progress. Jason, any other words that you'd like to share with the audience?
Yeah, like I said, be intentional about your plans and take the time and Shelly, we talk about it. Some folks that think like getting ransomware is like getting the chicken pox. You get it one time and then, oh, that was terrible, but I never have to think about it again. Actually, the opposite is true. If you've been hit, the blueprint's out, and you're likely to get hit multiple times. And if you paid, you're on a list of people that paid the ransom out there. So it's always something to consider. So what you have to do, like we talked about, is tighten up that process, that before, during, and after. And be intentional about the entirety of that plan, even in the after. Your legal folks are doing forensics. Are they doing it on a performant thing, or are they using an external hard drive, which runs at like 2 miles an hour on the highway? You got to have something more performant to tighten up those cycles so that you're ready for the next time somebody comes knocking. And hope, one of our customers told us it was they were recovering. They thought it was going to be 3 weeks. They just rebuilt everything. That was before they got with Pure and Cohesity, as it turns out. Totally coincidentally on that. I know no one's going to believe that watching this show, but it's the truth anyhow. When the next time they were attacked with having a Cohesity and Pure Storage solution in place, it was 30 minutes, and everything was back to normal. And it's a great story. And we had a customer tell that story at Pure Accelerate this year in Las Vegas, and it was a powerful tale. You can see everybody kind of nodding their heads and getting that. They had the bad experience, like you said, the chaos, Shelly,
the twitch,
people running around, probably things on fire, who knows. But the next time it was they learned their lessons. They were tightening it up every time, and that's the goal, right? Just get better prepared every time.
Well, I want to thank you so much for your time, Jason. And just for the audience, if you go out to Pure Storage or Pure Storage's website, you can check out Pure Flash Recover, which is powered by Cohesity. Yep. This gives you the ability to recover your data quickly. It's powered by Data Protect and gives you very comprehensive workload coverage. Thank you so much for joining us. This wraps up another episode of Cohesity Spotlight on Security Tech Insights. Thanks for watching, everyone.